Hi, I'm Vicki Payne. Welcome to my stained glass studio. I'm so glad you could join me today. I've got lots of stained glass projects that I want to share with you, like this door, plus many more. So come on, we've got lots of fun things to create together.
Welcome to Stained Glass Inlay by Vicki Payne, your introduction to the world of real stained glass. This video will show you how to make elegant stained glass projects from real glass without the expensive equipment or extensive technical knowledge generally associated with traditional stained glass. This revolutionary concept was developed by Plaid and Vicki Payne. Vicki is an internationally recognized stained glass teacher and inventor. She's the host of national television shows Glass with Vicki Payne and Glass Extravaganza, airing on public television stations and in syndication nationwide. Now, here's Vicki Payne.
Hi, I'm Vicki Payne. I'm so glad you could join me today. We're going to spend some time together learning how to work with an exciting new process called stained glass inlay. We're going to learn how to create beautiful projects for your home, for your garden, and even gifts for your friends and family. This is an exciting new technique because we're working with real stained glass. Let's take a look at the first project we're going to make together today, this lovely rosebud sun catcher. This would be a perfect accent to any window in your home. First of all, I'm working with pre-cut glass designs today. That's right, everything is already pre-cut for you, so you don't have to do any of the cutting. It makes stained glass easy, even if it's your first project. Let's look at the design we're going to create. This is our rosebud design, and it came from one of my new books. And I simply transferred the design onto some lightweight paper. I'm going to work over a light box today so you can see the beauty of all the glass. You, though, can just work on a table if you prefer at your own house. Now, I'm working on one of the surfaces from the stained glass inlay line, and it is perfect for this project because it already has a hook on the top of it, so when I'm finished, I can hang it right into the window. Now, place your design underneath your glass. That's all you need to do, and you'll be ready to start creating your design. Now, there's lots of designs in the stained glass inlay program. This particular design that I'm going to work with today is our rose design, and then you're going to find wonderful designs that are just a series of different leaf shapes, so you can become the real stained glass designer. I'm going to be working with 2 packages of leaves and a rose, and then I'm going to work with some brightly colored chips for the background. And you can buy these in a little jar, and there's a whole variety of colors. Now, on my design, I've added a border around the outside so that I can put the pink in the background, the blue for the border, and the rose and the leaves. I'm just going to put some glue out for us to work with. And then, just using a brush, I'm going to come in and apply the glue directly to the surface. Now, the glue, you can see through the glue, so that makes it really easy to see your pattern below the project, even if you're not working with a light box. And using my glass placement tool, I'm just going to lift out this little piece out of the package. They come in a little cavity, a little package, so that the pieces don't get chipped or broken, so they're really nice and secure that way. It's also a good way to store your glass pieces if you have any left over. The fun thing about this is I've been wanting to be able to let people work with stained glass for years without having to cut glass, and now they can, so it's real exciting for me to get to share this with you. Now, as you go around placing your pieces, it's really important that we leave about a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch space between each one of the pieces of glass, because this is where our powdered solder is going to go, so that it not only looks like real stained glass, but it is real stained glass. So let me go ahead and put in one of our leaves so you can see how that works. The nice thing about this is if you put on your glue and it starts to dry in one of the areas where you are, you can simply paint out more right over that area and position your glass piece. It doesn't matter if you build up 1 or 2 layers of glue, it'll still work just fine. Let's come in here and add one more of our leaves, or excuse me, of our rose petal. Okay. Once you have all of your rose glued down, then you're ready to move into the background. Now, just like in other stained glass projects, we generally like to work with as many colors as possible. In this particular case, we're using the pink for the background because it really sets off the rose for us. And these pieces are already pre-cut as well, but you may find that you need to trim some of these pieces. You want to wear your safety glasses whenever you're working with your glass, and especially when you're doing trimming. And these are our glass cutters. They're really easy to use, and if you need to trim down one of your larger pieces to put it into your project, you simply insert this between the two wheels and then just bend down on the handle and see how that splits it for you. You can become very skilled at working with your glass cutter and get some great shapes for your projects. Now, this piece is nice and small and will fit right into the area where I want it to go. So you can just continue around cutting down your pieces and filling in the backgrounds. There's also a nice variety of colors and shading in each one of your jars of chips. So you can actually go to a lighter blue, darker blue, create a design pattern as you go around with your background pieces. So you are creating a beautifully shaded stained glass panel as you work. Now, once you have all of your pieces filled into the background, you're going to be ready to do your soldering. Before you start to do your soldering, you're going to want to put down some paper to protect your work surface. I'm working with wax paper. It makes it really easy to clean up. You might want to use newspaper or craft paper. Then it's a good idea to wear a pair of rubber gloves when you work with your solder. It'll help keep your hands clean. And the dish that you're going to mix your solder in should be a disposable dish. That way cleanup is fast and quick. I've placed a small amount of the solder, it's powdered solder, which makes this process really easy, into a bowl, and I'm going to add a little bit of water to it. And it's best when you mix this up to add water just a spoonful at a time rather than pour it in, because we don't want our solder to be too soupy. We want to mix it up so that it's the consistency of peanut butter. That works really well, and adding a little bit of water at a time can help. And if you get it too thin, just add a little bit more of your powdered solder to thicken it up. Okay, once you have it mixed, that's a perfect consistency. See how it holds onto the spoon when I lift it up? Now we're going to put this onto our project, just spoon a little bit of it out. And working with just a simple utility brush like this, we're just going to place it around our project, working it in between each one of the grooves between each piece of the glass. Going forward and backwards, be sure that you work it all the way in. You know, the soldering process is really the part that's going to bring out the beauty of the glass, because soldering isolates each one of the design elements and isolates the colors so that it creates a beautiful stained glass project. Now, when you get to the outside edges, you simply want to take your brush and your solder and work toward the center of your project. This is going to help you build up around those outside edges and give a more finished look to it. Add a little bit more solder. And if you don't mix up enough the first time, you can always mix up more as you go along. Now you only have about 10 minutes working time with your solder before it will start to set up. But you can always add just a little bit more water to it, get it back to a good working consistency, and then continue your soldering process. But you can't store the solder from one project to the other, so only mix up as much as you need for the project that you're making today. Okay, once you have it all the way around and you've built up your edges, if you're working over a light box, you can sit this on the top of it and see if there's any holes that you see in it. Once you're to that stage, you're ready to clean it off. Now, to clean it off, I'm just simply using a damp sponge, and you want to make sure there's not any water dripping out of it as you squeeze it. You want to come in and wipe off the surface of your glass, one pass, then rinse it out in a container of water. Come back, wipe off again, rotate your sponge, and rinse it out. You want to remove as much of the excess solder as you can off the surface of your glass. See how beautiful that's really just popping right out? Once you have it to this stage, I'm going to make one more pass around it, and then I'm going to let it set for about 20 minutes. Once it's set for 20 minutes, it'll be ready for final cleanup. Now I've waited about 20 minutes and my project is ready for final cleanup. Now a good test to find out if your project is ready is to take a look at the surface of the glass pieces. If you see a gray haze across the glass, then that's a good indication that your solder is dry. Another test is to take your finger and rub it across the glass, and if it doesn't smear, you know it's ready for cleanup. We're going to take our buffing pad and simply start to brush across the glass. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous the way it just pops right out? That beautiful red and green opalescent glass. A beautiful stained glass project. Now you just want to go across your project. You want to rotate your buffing pad every once in a while to a clean surface and clean it off the glass. Remember, we just want to remove it from the surface of the glass, not from in between. That solder needs to stay intact where it is. Once you have your surface cleaned off, then you're ready to clean off the edges. Now remember, we built up the edges just a little bit. Well, let me show you how. Let me release this from the paper. And now I'm going to take the buffing pad and I'm just going to come in here and make a circular motion all the way around the edge of the project. And if you've applied it pretty thick on the edges, it may be a little damp, so just gently go around the edge, shaping that the way you want it, and then to set this aside to dry completely. Now you want to let it dry about 24 hours before you do the final sealer on it. Now we want to seal our stained glass so that we can protect it from dirt and dust and the elements, especially if you're going to put these outside. So I've taken a little bit of my stained glass inlay sealer. I've poured it a little bit out into a dish. I'm using the brush. And I just want to come in and apply it to my project. And then you just want to brush this out, cross your project, just like I'm doing. Then you want to take your buffing pad again, turn it over and use the other clean side, and then just gently buff the surface of your glass to shine it up. Let this dry for about 30 minutes, put a second coat of sealer on, and if you're going to be using your project outdoors, you might even want to add a third coat. Then let it all set up and dry for at least 48 hours. You can put it outside. If you're hanging it inside, you can hang it right away and enjoy it. Let's review the process that we've gone through to make this beautiful sun catcher. First of all, we started out by selecting our design from our book. We transferred it to a piece of paper. We selected our pre-cut glass elements. We glued them in place. After they were glued in place, we let them dry for 24 hours. Then we went in and we mixed up our liquid solder. We applied it to our project. After we had applied our liquid solder, then we allowed that to set up for 20 minutes. We went in, we buffed the glass clean. We let it dry for another 24 hours, and then we applied our sealer. Then our project was ready to display. This is a great project, even for beginners. I know you're going to enjoy it. Let's take a closer look at our next project we're going to make together. Isn't this beautiful? I have 3 different books. This is from my outdoor design book. So if you love to garden as much as I do, this is going to be a great project for you. Now, this is a koi fish with water lilies and water pads. You have the water in the background, the sky, and a dragonfly. It was really fun to create. Let me show you how easy it was to get started. Now, first of all, like in all of your glass inlay projects, you're going to need to start with a surface. In my particular case, for my bird bath, I decided to work with a 16-inch terracotta saucer. You can use any size of saucer that you'd like and enlarge your design to accommodate that size of saucer. Now, the design is from the book, and I've simply enlarged it to accommodate the saucer. And using some carbon paper or graphite paper, you can transfer your design to the surface. Anytime you're working with an opaque surface as opposed to a glass surface, you're going to need to use this transfer process. You can hold your design in place with a little bit of stick and stay, which is simply a reusable adhesive, or if you don't have that, you can use masking tape. Now, once you've transferred your design, see how easy it is to follow? It's almost like glass by numbers. It's that simple. I've already gotten started on the other side. Now, We want to come in and do our fish and our flowers and our sky, but let's start with some of our pre-cut shapes first. Let's take a look at our dragonflies. Aren't they absolutely beautiful? Notice how they sparkle. That's because they are cut out of iridescent stained glass. When the sun hits these out in the garden, they're going to look just like the real thing. Now, to put them onto our project, all we have to do is take our inlay glue and apply it right to the back of our piece and then position them right down onto the project. Following our design, just put it right there. Now, each one of the pieces to our pre-cut shapes are all hand cut, so they may vary just a little bit in their shape, and your design will always be uniquely yours, regardless of whose design you're working from. Now I'm going to glue these down. Don't be skimpy with the glue, because remember, we're going to put water into our fountain or into our bird bath once we're through with it, and we want to make sure our pieces adhere well. See how fast and easy that was for me to create a stained glass dragonfly? Couldn't be simpler. Now, the water lilies, let me show you how I created those. And this to me is the most exciting thing about working with stained glass inlay, is because, take a look at these. This is our daisy and this is our daffodil. We're going to take one of the pieces from our daffodil and we're going to come over to our design and we're going to fit it first, just dry fit it to your design so you're sure it's the right piece. Then we're going to apply glue to the back of it and position it. Now, in the book, it'll show you exactly which pieces of the pattern we are working with on each individual shape so that you won't have any problem matching it up. You're going to be able to come up with even more designs than I did just working with these individual beautifully cut pieces. That's our little daisy petal that goes in there. Now that we've positioned it there, doesn't it look just like a water lily? Now you can also turn these over and use them on the other side. That gives you a totally different range of shapes to work with, just like we're doing there. Now we have two totally different looks. Couldn't be easier. I'm sure you're going to enjoy this entire process. Now, to fill in parts of my other designs, I'm going to work with inlay chips. Now, I'm working with an 8-ounce jar of the green chips, and they come in this nice wide top jar so that you can store them in. They're easy to get to that way, and you just want to put them out onto your work table. Notice the different shades that are in one jar. There are lighter green and darker green, and this is great because you can really become a stained glass artist using these different colors to accent your design, create shading. It's really going to be a lot of fun to work with. Now, you're going to notice that some of these pieces are way too large for your design. Other times, you're going to want to work with large pieces, but for this project, I want to cut these down in size. To do that, I'm going to work with my cutter, my glass cutter. It's really easy to use, and it has 2 glass cutting wheels on it. Be sure those safety glasses are on. And let me show you how easy it is to cut your glass. You simply put it between the wheels and then just close down on it. Couldn't be easier than that. Now, I want to show you how to fill in this little stem for the water lily. I'm going to take this smaller piece of glass, insert my glass into the cutters for, about 1/4 of an inch, and then just break down on it and continue right out across my piece. Now, instead of having a square of glass, I have these perfect little lines of glass that will create the stem for my water lily. See how easy it is to work with these chips? Now we're just going to come in, apply some of our inlay glue, and glue them down. You can continue to work around your project, filling in each one of the individual pieces, making sure that you take the time to create some shading and have a lot of fun with the project. Now, once you have all of this filled in, you're going to want to do some sort of edge treatment to it. Let's take a look at the one that I created earlier. You could stop with your design just in the bottom if you wanted, right around this edge, or you can continue your design right on at the sides with your inlay pieces. And then around the top of my bird bath, I added some black glass. Now, let me show you another design trick that you might want to use on your bird bath, and that is with these colorful glass nuggets. We have a wide variety of colors for you to choose from, and you could come in and simply glue those down around the edge of the bird bath, and when the sun hits these, it's really going to sparkle. So you can see there's lots of design options that you can use to create this beautiful bird bath. Once you're through gluing everything down, we needed to let it dry 24 hours before we start to solder. Now, to create the fish, you're going to need to cut your glass chips into very small pieces. Remember, designing is color, texture, and shape. So, to make our koi really jump out in the design, we want the pieces to be smaller than the pieces we used for the water, or say for the water lily. That way, we'll create a much more interesting design. It's also really handy when you're working with these little pieces if you will use your glass placement tool to help you handle these little pieces and put them right onto the project. Now, it's best if you apply the glue directly to the back of the piece, but if you're working with really tiny pieces, you may find that putting a good solid amount of glue onto the surface and then filling in like I am may work best for you. Now you just want to continue creating your design and fill in all the blanks, leave just a little bit of space between your pieces so you'll have plenty of room for the solder. Now, once your project has dried for 24 hours, you're ready to start doing your soldering. I've gone around the outside edges and placed masking tape. The reason I did this was to protect the terracotta surface from the solder. Not that it'll damage it, but because I don't want the black of the grout to go onto the terracotta. So remember, whenever you're doing your soldering, be sure that you mask it off so that you can keep it contained where you want it to be. Now, you want to put on your rubber gloves when you're working with this process. And I've already pre-mixed my powder solder by just adding water. And get these gloves on and I'll show you the consistency that we're after. Take a look at my solder. Now I just added some spoonfuls of water to the powdered solder, mixed it up to the consistency of peanut butter. Now, put it out onto your surface, and you might want to put some newspapers or some craft paper on your work table to keep it clean while you're working with this process. And just using a utility brush, I'm moving the solder around the project, filling in all of the gaps between all of the pieces. Now you can also use the width of your solder lines as part of your design element. In the book, you'll see where we have used solder lines as the stems for flowers, for special border treatments. So think about that when you're doing your designing too. Now you've got color, you've got pre-cut shapes, you have chips, you've got solder lines, you've got iridescent surfaces, you've got nuggets. I mean, I tell you, there are so many great design opportunities that you're going to really enjoy being a stained glass craftsman. Now, just continue around your project until you've filled in all of the gaps between your chips, and then make sure your edges are nice and smooth. We're going to set this to the side and we're going to let it dry for 20 minutes. Then we'll be ready to come in and do our next step. You need to allow your solder to dry for about 20 minutes before you move on to the next step. Now, once I had all my solder on, I wiped it off with a damp sponge, just like I did before. Then I allowed it to dry for that 20 minutes, and this is how you want the surface to look. If you look closely, you'll see it has that little gray haze across the glass. That's exactly what we're waiting for. Then you want to take your buffing pad and simply come in. And this is the magic part. I always love this part when I work with stained glass. Look how these colors just jump right out. There's our yellow water lily that we created using our daisy and our daffodil. Isn't that beautiful? And you just want to move all the way across your project, removing all of that film from the glass. Remember to rotate your buffing pad occasionally to a clean surface. When you get around the edges, we want to be real careful, work a little bit slower, so that you can remove that edge without gouging down into the solder. Just gently work around that edge and then continue around. You'll find that circular motions are the best ones to finish off your project with. Once you remove this from all the surface of your glass, you're going to be ready to remove the masking tape. and start the sealing process after you let this dry. So let's remove our masking tape and see this nice edge that it has for us around the outside. Just going to take that off. See how nice and clean that is around the edge? And now you can just take a dry brush and then just brush off that excess solder. See how beautiful that is? Okay, once you have your project all cleaned up, you want to let this dry for 24 hours before you apply the sealer. Now the sealer is so important when you're doing projects, especially for the outdoors, because we want this to last for years out in our garden, and because it is a bird bath, we're going to be filling it with water. So simply take some of your inlay sealer, pour it out into a dish, take a dry brush, and coat your entire project over the entire surface. Make sure that you get all around the edges, and you know what? You can even put a little bit onto the terracotta. That helps seal that as well. Once you have that completely covered with one coat, you want to let it dry for about a half hour. You want to take your buffing pad, go in and buff any of the excess sealer off the surface of your glass, and then apply another coat, let it dry again for a half hour, and apply a third coat for this particular project. Once that's dried for 24 hours, put it out in your garden, fill it up with water, and you know, the birds and you both will enjoy this project. You may not think of yourself as a stained glass designer, but after our next project, I'm sure that you will. Part of the fun of working with stained glass inlay is the ability to create wonderful designs. Now we're going to make a great set of coasters next, and this project is one that you can find in one of my books. But if you want to be creative and create your own, let me show you how I did this one. These are some pieces that I had. I purchased a couple of the dragonflies and a set of butterflies for this project, but the leaves were left over from another project, and I had some glass chips left as well. So combining these, I created our 4 designs. Now let me show you what I mean. This is a dragonfly, right, as you see it now, but when I pick up the dragonfly body and place it right there, it now becomes a stem to my flower. Let's take the other dragonfly, place it on the other side, and this is that beautiful iridized glass, and it really sparkles with a lot of surface color. Here are the leftover leaves from a prior project. I'm going to put those right in place. And for the flowers, I'm going to use the bottom of the butterfly. Again, these are beautiful yellow iridized glass. And there, I've created a totally new design. See how easy this is for you to do? Once you've moved your pieces around and you're happy with the design you've created, simply take a pencil and trace around them to create your pattern template. Now I'm working with clear glass blanks for my coasters. I just simply cut these myself. If you haven't cut glass before, you can get these cut for yourself at a stained glass shop or even at your home improvement store. You want to just slide your pieces to the side and place your glass right over the top of your design. Then you're going to be ready to start gluing things in place. Now we want to apply some glue to the back of our glass and use a good amount of it. We want to put enough glue on that when we press it down to the glass, it actually flows to the edges of our glass piece. That helps keep our solder from running underneath our glass when we're doing our soldering process. Just move around your project, gluing down all of your pieces in your design first. And always remember to keep your design away from the edges of your glass. A good 1/8 of an inch is a good idea, or at least a 1/16, so you'll have plenty of room for your solder. Line up your pieces so that they follow your design. And once you have your design glued in place, then you're ready to start filling in your project with the background chips. Now, your chips are going to be in a larger size like this, which is perfect for a lot of the designs you want to create, but for this coaster, we need them to be much smaller. Here's a tip for you. If you'll take just a plain bowl like I'm working with, or even a terracotta flower pot saucer works great too, use this to cut over and to put your chips in. That way they won't fly around the table. They'll be easy for you to reach while you're working on your project. And when you're all done, you can just stack up all your bowls and put them away in one spot. So take your glass, put it in your cutter, and then just cut down on it, and it'll go right into your dish for you. And you want to just go ahead and cut up a good stack of these so you'll have lots of random shapes to work with as you go through your project. Now these are real contemporary coasters, so the white glass in the background is going to be a perfect choice. Come in with your glue, and you can put them onto the back of the glue and position them on your design like that. And if you need to reach into those small places to place your glass, you're going to find that your glass placement tool works just perfect to line that up. Don't forget to leave a space between each piece of glass for your solder. On a small project like this, a little 1/16 of an inch line will look really super. On a larger project, maybe a larger space is what you want to work with. Just continue filling in all of the gaps with your background glass. Once you have that done, you're going to be ready to let the piece set and dry for 24 hours. So this is a project you're going to start it today, you're going to finish it tomorrow. Once you have all of your pieces on and they've dried overnight, you're going to be ready to do your soldering. Now, the only difference between the way we're going to solder this project and the way we did the last project was the color of solder we're working with. This is white, which is really going to add to the contemporary look that we're after for the coasters. Simply mix it with water, just like we did before, apply it to your project, clean it up. After it's dried for 24 hours, you're going to be ready to apply your sealer. Now the sealer is really important, even though these are going to be used inside the house, because we want to protect them from stains. Like coffee cup that's set down on it or a glass of wine, it'll keep it from staining the surface that way. Once your sealer is dried, then you're ready to do a real fun decorative edge treatment. This is our finished coaster. Look how great it looks with a silver foil around the outside edge. It really gives it a finished stained glass appearance, and that's what we're after. Now this is the foil that we're going to be working with. It's nice and shiny on both sides. This side has adhesive on it, this side doesn't. This side, of course, is the one we want to put toward the glass edge. Now, once your solder is completely dry and your sealer, then you're ready to start doing your foiling. Now, we have used 2 thicknesses of glass here, so we're going to use 2 strips of foil. The first one that I want to put on, and I'm going to hold it with my hand sort of like a tape dispenser, I'm going to put this on so that I have about 1/16 of an inch of the foil extending to the back of the glass. Then, working by removing the little paper so the adhesive is exposed, I'm going to work right around the glass, keeping the overlap even and centered as I go around. If you get it off center, you can always pull it off and reposition it. Place it on the glass, kind of smooth it down a little bit with your hands as you go. Peel it back off, position it out again to the edge, go back, smooth it down a little bit with your hand, rotate it, and we're just working around the outside edge, applying the foil to it. Silver foil can really add a beautiful finish to any of your stained glass inlay projects. For instance, on a sun catcher, it makes a great finished edge to it, and on the coasters, it really finishes it off nicely. Now, I have overlapped it from where I started about 1/2 inch, right out to the corner. Now I'm going to take just a craft knife and cut this off right at the edge like that. And now I'm going to use the Foil Mate to smooth it down. Now the Foil Mate has some really great features to it. It has a nice smooth edge that you can use to start with to burnish this nice and tightly to the outside edge of your coaster. Then it has a grooved edge that you can place into it, and this will bend the foil over the back side and the front side of your glass. You don't want to do this with your fingers because the edge of your foil is sharp and you can get a cut that way. So always use your groove to bend it over. Then at the corners, just tuck those in by just pushing in on the corners. Always remember, burnish first and then crimp. Push in your corners, rotate the piece, burnish, crimp it down, and push in your corners. And don't forget to go back and do the first corner. Once you have that done, you want to lay it down on a smooth surface and use the other end of the Foil Mate, which is a nylon roller, and burnish it down nice and tightly to the glass, all the way around. turn it over to the other side, and you want to hold it up and burnish this edge nice and flat. Going right on around it. Burnish it up to your glass pieces. Now, once you have the first roll on, all you want to do is go back in with some more of your foil and put a second strip around, overlapping it over to the glass exactly the way we did the back. And there you go. Couldn't look prettier. All you want to do is continue and do all of yours the same way. Now, I want to give you a tip when you're designing like we've been doing for this project. When you work with stained glass, just like if you work with fabric or with wood, there is a grain to glass. If you take a close look at this leaf, see how the grain runs from the tip of the leaf all the way to the back? That's what I love about every one of these pre-cut pieces. We were very careful to make sure that the grain runs in the right direction, exactly like it would if you were doing a Tiffany masterpiece. So you can design with complete confidence knowing that your glass utilizes the glass to its fullest capacity with the graining and the color. Makes designing wonderful. Aren't these beautiful? There are so many wonderful designs that you can create using silver foil, glass, and items that you may already have in your craft room. Let me show you how easy this project was to create. All we did is we started out with just some simple glass blanks like we did for our coaster, except I'm working with very thin glass. It's called single strength glass. Then I can place pressed flowers, a photograph, or in this case, this pretty little silhouette out of craft paper right into the middle of my glass, put my other piece onto the top of it, and then to secure it all together as I work so that I don't have to worry about it moving while I foil it, I just used a little masking tape on both sides. Then when I put the foil around it, again just like on the coasters, it will be very easy to foil up to this point, remove my masking tape, and continue around the edge. The pieces stay together nice and easy, and it's very easy to do. Now, once you have your project completely wrapped in your foil and all smoothed down, you need to make a hanger so that you can hang this into your window. So the best way to do that is to use some wire. Wire comes in so many beautiful colors nowadays that it's a work of art all by itself. And when you coordinate the wire with the colors of your flowers, like we're using these pink flowers and the purple wire, it's really a nice project. Now, you can use jeweler's tools for this project, or you can just use plain needle nose pliers. To straighten out your wire nice and smooth like I've done, I simply asked a friend to help me. We each used a pair of pliers, gave it a little stretch, and it straightened it out. It also gave it more strength. Now, I'm going to place this on the edge of my glass using the groove between the two glasses that I can see through the foil. I'm just going to wrap this on around. Bring up all sides. See how important it is that the wire is nice and straight for this project? Then I'm going to take a pair of pliers, grasping both wires, and I'm just going to simply start to twist. I'm going to give it a couple of twists. That's going to tighten it. You want to make sure it's nice and tight and it won't slip off your glass. Then, once you have it secured, just continue wrapping the two pieces together by hand. Wrap them on up for about, an inch or an inch and a half. Then you just want to create a loop, wrap it right around your finger, bring it back down, straighten that loop up so that you have it looking like that. Now we can take these pieces, bring them around, holding on to this edge, and simply wrap them around the base of this wire. Hold on to that and wrap it all the way around. Okay, now just continue to wrap it around the base so that you make sure it's nice and secure. Once you're happy that you have enough of them around, just take a little pair of wire cutters, cut that off, take your pliers, and squeeze it together nice and secure. And now you've got a nice little hook for this. You could add a pretty piece of silk ribbon and hang it in your window. Great fun, easy project. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Remember that beautiful brass door I showed you earlier? Well, now let's learn how easy it is to make it. Now I'm just working with a traditional stained glass design, and I measured out my doorway, I created a pattern on just some craft paper, and I've taped it in place behind my glass door. Now you want to make sure that the glass is really good and clean before you start this project. You might even want to take a little denatured alcohol on a little cotton swab and wipe it down in the places where the cane is going to go so you get good adhesion with it. Now I'm working with a beautiful new brass cane today, and this caning is solid brass. And on the back of it, it has a sticky adhesive. There's a paper that protects it until you're ready to use it. And then on the back, there's adhesive that allows you to adhere it to your door. This way you can do right on the outside of your door or on your inside as well. Now, once you've created your design, here's a really important tip. Do you notice how wide the line is in my design? Well, I drew it with a pencil and a ruler first, and you want to be sure you use a straight edge so you can get your lines nice and straight and parallel. Then I went in with a felt tip marker that had about 1/8 of an inch width to it, and I just highlighted my lines. I went right down them to make them nice and wide. This is really important because when I get ready to put my cane in place, I want to have a wide line like this as a guide. That way, as I'm working, if I can see the black line on this side and on that side, then I know I'm right on my pattern. If I only see it on one side, then I know I'm not going to line up well with the next piece, and I can gently peel this off and stick it back on. So the width of the line is really important. It'll help you a lot in creating a nice, professional-looking project when you're done. Let's put our brass onto the door. The first thing we want to do is we want to hold it over our pattern. Now I still have the protective paper on the back of the caning because now I just want to fit it to the line, and right here I am going to draw a line right in the middle. I'm going to put a mark on the cane in the middle of this black line. That's where I need to trim off the cane to fit my pattern. Now to cut the cane, it's really quite simple. I'm just using a pair of heavy-duty household shears to cut it with. You could use a pair of tin snips or wire cutters if you prefer. And I'm just going to simply hold it straight and cut it. It's as simple as that. Now, once you have it to the size you want it, now's the time you want to peel back the paper backing. Try and keep your hands off of the adhesive, because if you get your hands and the oil from them on the back of this, it could interfere with the adhesion, and we don't want that to happen. Place it onto the door, line it up. Remember the width of that black line that you've got so that you stay on pattern. If you're on pattern now, you shouldn't be able to see any of your black line on either side of it. Now, to make sure that it is adhering to the glass, I'm going to take the foil mate and I'm simply going to roller this down. It's nice and strong. It won't crush the surface of your brass, and it won't scar the face of it. The nylon roller is really nice and gentle to the cane, but it really does hold it nice and secure. Now we're ready to put our next piece on. Now the next one, I'm going to continue to go down in my long vertical pieces before I switch to the horizontal pieces. So I'm going to bring that down. Again, I want to take my marker and mark it to the center of that line. Take it down and trim it to the exact length that I need it to be. Now, you can do your front door, you could do a side light, or maybe you would like to start with a smaller project. Maybe you live in an apartment and you have kitchen cabinet doors that have glass inserts and you would like to accent those. This is a great way to really put some style and pizzazz into your kitchen by doing your kitchen cabinet door inserts. You may decide that you would like to do some wall art using this same technique. You can take a simple decorative picture frame, remove the artwork, leave the glass inside of it, and create a design onto the glass surface. You might want to accent it with some of the stained glass inlay we used earlier, and then have a beautiful object to hang on your wall. Now, I want to come across and show you how easy it is to do a horizontal one, just like we have here. I'm going to hold this in place, bring it over, and you see where it intersects with this one on the vertical line? Mark it right close to the edge. We want to make, now the secret to creating beautiful stained glass projects is to get the fits as close and as accurate as you can. So we're going to bring this in, and I'm simply going to cut that and remove this piece of backing off of it. Keep your hands off the back, remember, and position it nice and smooth onto your window. Now, if it's a little bit longer than you want it, don't force it into place. If you force it down at this point, it's going to eventually pop off the glass because brass is a very strong metal. So gently remove it from your window, come back and trim just a tiny little bit off of it so that it fits a little bit better. Then bring it in. Once you're happy with the fit like that, you want to position it exactly where it needs to go. Then take your roller and roller that down. Couldn't be much easier, could it? Now, all we want to do is continue to do our vertical pieces all the way through our window. Then we want to come back in and do some of our horizontal pieces and complete our entire project all the way down to the bottom. You know, and if you enjoy doing this that much, next project should be your side lights. I want to share some tips with you that'll make your project turn out just perfect. If when you're applying your brass caming to the door, you end up with a gap like I have right here, I like to go in and do what's called spot soldering in each one of the intersections with just a small amount because we're working with real brass came and we'd like to have that solder tack joint there to give it a perfect finished professional look. It's an easy project and you just want to continue right on down until you've got all your brass in place. Then make sure you take the time to take your foil mate and go back in and roller over every one of the pieces of brass to make sure that it's well adhered to the door. And then you've got a perfect front door for your home. Well, this door turned out just great, didn't it? And I told you it was going to be so easy. I hope you enjoyed all of today's projects as much as I did, and I hope to see you again real soon. Until then, I'm Vicki Payne, and thanks for stopping by.
For more exciting ideas, visit our website at plaidonline.com.